Hi boys and girls, I'm Stephanie Stewart and I'm here today to read a very special story to you. It's kind of silly, kind of funny, but I think it's just what we need to get our brains working. We're going to learn a little bit about characters and parts of a story, but before we get started, I want to remind you that the secret word today is ocean. So when I'm through, make sure you let your teacher know that you watched this lesson and that the secret word was ocean for today. So we're going to get started. And what we want to do first is just relax and get our heads in a good place to really absorb all of the learning that's going to take place today. So if you'll just take a deep breath in for 4 seconds, and then release and count down 4, 3, 2, 1. We're going to do that again. Breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4, and release and blow out. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to get those arms working. It's good to have all of your body parts moving and really get your mind relaxed before you sit down and try to concentrate. So let's get our arms circling and let's do this for about 90 seconds just to really get our blood flowing so that our brains are doing the best that it possibly can do to really absorb everything you're going to learn today. And then let's take those arms backwards just for a few seconds. All right, the next thing we're going to do, this is tricky, and I challenge you to try this with your parents when you get home today. I want you to make a peace sign with one hand and an okay sign with another hand. Now I want you to switch it. I want you to make a peace sign and an okay sign. It's really hard. You might even see me trip up just a little bit. Now I want you to switch that. Think really hard. Okay sign, peace sign. And let's switch it back. Okay sign, peace sign. That's really hard to do, but that will help you to just concentrate. Really thinking about controlling yourself, controlling your emotions. The next thing I want you to try to do, another challenge for you, is touch your nose and your ear. And then we're going to switch it. Your nose and your ear. And we're going to switch it back. Your nose and your ear. And one more time. Your nose and your ear. And I know I look super silly right now, but I really want to make sure you're ready to learn. And the last thing I'm going to ask you to do is to breathe in your favorite color. Whatever that might be, breathe in your favorite color. And then any worry you have going on in your mind or in your heart, let that all out. So sometimes if you're feeling stressed or you're feeling overwhelmed, here are just a few exercises you can do and some tricky ones in there also to really challenge your brain. We're going to get started today, and like I said, I'm going to read to you a story. It's one of my favorites, and it's by one of my favorite authors, Robert Munsch. And a few things I want you to really pay close attention to today when we're reading. I want you to really think about the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story, because authors write stories in a certain way to really grasp your attention, to really get you engaged in this story. So as I'm reading, try to keep in mind the beginning, the middle, and the end. And if you have a sticky note or a little tiny piece of paper, you can even take that and jot down a few notes just so you remember pieces of the story. So we may go back to those later on when we're finished. We're also going to think about what can we learn from this story? Why did the author even write Stephanie's ponytail? Sounds silly enough, but what was Robert Munsch's purpose when he wrote this story? And let's think about the characters. There's going to be several characters in this book, and they're going to do different things, and we want to think about how the things that they do really impact the outcome of the story. We're also going to have some fun. So remember, if you have some sticky notes, or even if you have a little piece of paper lying around at home, you might grab those just so you can jot down some notes. As I read, I want you to be thinking about the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story. And at the end of the story, I have a challenge for you. So you'll want to pay close attention while I'm reading. And I'm going to leave that right there just to keep your mind on the beginning and the middle and the end of the story. So the title of the story is Stephanie's Ponytail, and it's written by Robert Munsch. I really messed that up because The author or the illustrator is Michael Marchenko, and I actually just combined those two names. So Robert Munch is the author of this story. One day, Stephanie went to her mom and said, "None of the kids in my class have a ponytail. I want a nice ponytail coming right out of the back." So Stephanie's mom gave her a nice ponytail coming right out of the back. When Stephanie went to school that day, the other students looked at her and said, "Ugly, ugly, ugly, very ugly." Stephanie said, "It's my ponytail and I like it." And you can see there how her classmates responded to her ponytail. You can probably even think about how that might have made you feel if you had a new hairstyle you wore to school and your friends didn't receive it well. And you'll see my sticky notes up there. That's kind of how I just jotted down my thoughts as I was reading through the book. The next morning, when Stephanie went to school, all the other girls had ponytails coming out of the back. Stephanie looked at them and said, "You are all a bunch of copycats. You just do whatever I do. You don't have a brain in your heads." And you can see a few of Stephanie's friends decided that they were going to take her ponytail idea. She's starting to get a little frustrated. So the next morning, Stephanie's mom said, "Would you like a ponytail coming out of the back?" And Stephanie said, "No, that's the only place you can do ponytails." "No, it's not," said Stephanie. "I want one coming out of the side, just above my ear." "Very strange," said the mom. "Are you sure that's what you want?" "Yes," said Stephanie. So her mom gave Stephanie a nice ponytail coming right out above her ear. It's getting kind of silly. We'll see what happens the next day. You probably have some ideas about how you think the students will act when Stephanie gets to school. When she went to school, the other kids saw her and said, "Ugly, ugly, very ugly." Stephanie said, "It's my ponytail and I like it." And you better believe the next morning when Stephanie came to school, all the girls and even some of the boys had nice ponytails coming out just above their ears. So now we're really kind of in the middle of the story. We're going to see what this character does next. The next morning, Mom said, "Stephanie, would you like a ponytail coming out of the back?" And Stephanie said, "No." "Would you like one coming out of the side?" "No." "Then that's that," said her mom. "There is no other place you can do ponytails." "Yes, there is," said Stephanie. "I want one coming out of the top of my head, just like a tree." "That is very, very strange," said her mom. "Are you sure that is what you want?" "Yes," said Stephanie. So she's pretty persistent about her ponytails, and let's see what happens. So her mom gave Stephanie a nice ponytail coming out of the top of her head, just like a tree. When Stephanie went to school, the other kids saw her and said, "Ugly, ugly, ugly, very ugly." Stephanie said, "It's my ponytail and I like it." And the next day, all of the girls and all of the boys had ponytails coming out of the top. It looked like it was broccoli growing right out of the top of their heads. So there's a pattern in this story, and it seems as if every time Stephanie changes her hairstyle, her classmates follow. And I'm just wondering what's going to happen next. We're in the very center of the book, the very middle part of the book. So the next morning, Mom said, "Stephanie, would you like a ponytail?" And I'm actually going to hide this part because I want you to think about what you think might happen. "Would you like a ponytail coming out of the back?" Stephanie said, "No." "Would you like one coming out of the side?" "No." "Would you like one coming out of the top?" "No." "Then that's definitely it," said the mom. "There is no other place you can do ponytails." "Yes, there is," said Stephanie. "I want one coming out of the front, hanging down in front of my nose." And her mom said, "But no one will know if you are coming or going. Are you sure this is what you want?" "Yes," said Stephanie. So her mom gave Stephanie a nice ponytail coming out from the front of her head. On the way to school, she bumped into 4 trees, 3 cars, 2 houses, and the principal. When she finally got to her class, the other kids saw her and said, "Ugly, ugly, very ugly." Stephanie said, it's my ponytail and I like it. So Stephanie is super frustrated at this point. Something is going to have to happen. But as you can probably imagine, the next day, all of the girls, all of the boys, and even the teachers had ponytails coming out of the front, hanging down in front of their noses. None of them could see where they were going. They bumped into desks, they bumped into each other, they bumped into walls, and by mistake, 3 girls went into the boys' bathroom. They've got some trouble going on in this school right now. They probably need to practice their breathing, I would say. And I just think if you want to take a quick look at this picture, just to think about, maybe think about what you think is going to happen next. Stephanie is very, very frustrated at this point. So something she's going to do is going to really change how this story ends. She yelled, "You are a bunch of brainless copycats. You just do whatever I do. When I come tomorrow, I am going to shave my head." So let's see what happens tomorrow. The first person to come the next day was the teacher. She had shaved her head and she was bald. The next to come were boys, and they had also shaved their heads and they were bald. The next to come were girls. They had shaved their heads and they were bald. And the last person to come was Stephanie. And what do you think? She had a nice little ponytail hanging out of the back of her head. She did not shave her head like she told them. She totally changed her idea, but they did copy her. And as you can see in this picture, that just created a whole lot of chaos in that building. So boys and girls, there's a lot to think about with this story. And if you want to just take a minute to maybe if you jotted down any notes while we were reading, maybe you have some sticky notes to make you remember the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story, and also thinking about the characters and the different things that Stephanie did to actually get her friends to try. She wanted her friends to stop copying her. But authors often use characters they present a challenge that you might have, or they make a character's personality, maybe it's similar to yours, or maybe it's nothing like yours. And this helps us to develop perspective. It also helps us to understand how characters deal with challenges in their life. And while this was a very silly and simple and fun book, you can take what you learned today and you can apply it to other books, and maybe other books that might be a little bit more challenging to read. But if you can make a connection with the character, sometimes you'll really think it will help you to comprehend and better understand what the author is trying to tell you. But if you think back, we had the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story. In the very beginning, Stephanie asks her mom for a ponytail, and she wants that ponytail to come straight out of the back of her head. And then we go into, she gets to school, her friends weren't very nice to her. They called her ugly, but the next day, they copied her. And then as we went through the rest of the book, Stephanie continues to switch up her ponytail. Stephanie's mom tries to convince her that there aren't very many other ways to wear your ponytail, but she's very persistent, and she becomes more and more frustrated every time she tries. She bumps into many things, even the principal on the way to school in the center of the middle of the book, and that's kind of that tipping point. When she wore the ponytail straight out of the front of her head, she became super frustrated. We know that she told her classmates that she was going to shave her head the next day. So if we were predicting, we might have thought that Stephanie was going to come to school bald the next day. However, she tricked them. She changed her idea, and instead, she came to school with her ponytail, and her classmates ended up shaving their head. So we also think about how the characters' actions really change the end of the story, and that's one of our big takeaways for today. What do characters do that change the overall outcome of the story? And really thinking about the beginning of the book where the author really tries to grab your interest, and then that takes you through the very end of the book where we know there's probably going to be some sort of a challenge or a problem those characters are trying to get through. And we had one more there, and I already talked about that. So did the characters in this story learn a lesson? I would think that if we're just thinking about the moral of the story or the central message of the story, One, we probably wouldn't always want to copy and do exactly what our friends do. That might have been something. If Robert Munch could talk to you, what would he say he wanted you to learn? So would he want you to learn maybe not to copy your friends? Or would he want you to learn that maybe people really like you and sometimes they like to do the things that you're doing? So that might make us think about our actions more and maybe always giving our best so that if our friends do look up to us or they think we're pretty special and they're going to copy some of our behaviors, that way we're really spreading that good all over the community. Have you ever felt like the character Stephanie? Have you ever just felt frustrated? You were just trying to be your own person and maybe you have a little brother or sister who always wants to do what you want to do, or you just don't feel like you can quite be yourself. I think maybe Stephanie was feeling some of those challenges today. Have you ever felt like the other characters in the book? Maybe there's someone in your class you did really think was cool and you wanted to be more like them. And so you kind of modeled after them. You did the things that they did. So sometimes you can see how we're relating to the different characters in the text. Often there's an opportunity to do that authors will give you when they write their stories. So we can also think a little bit deeper about the characters. Could the characters in Stephanie's ponytail have changed the plot or the action in the story? What if they hadn't copied her at all? The character Stephanie might have done something very different throughout the story. How did the characters change the way you thought about the story? Did you have a certain feeling while you were listening to me read about the characters? Maybe you wished you would have seen Stephanie's classmates do something differently. Or maybe you do wish Stephanie would have shaved her head. That might have made for a very funny ending of a story. And we've already talked a little bit about just really relating to characters in the text that you read. And we talked already just a bit about how the story how it could have ended differently. And one other thing that came to mind when I'm really thinking about the characters is, did Stephanie's mood change any when she wore a different hairstyle? She seems to be pretty frustrated after she arrived to school. But in the beginning, she was really persistent about trying new things. And so the characters in this story really played off of each other in the fact that the author used them to respond to each other for the overall plot of the story. Finally, for today, remember I said that there would be a challenge at the end of the story. One thing that I'd like for you to think about, and this was, like I said, it was a very fun story. I really wanted to be able to read to you today with a very just uplifting, happy story, because I know there are a lot of different situations going on right now, maybe out there in the world. But think about what could you do that others might copy you and would have a very good impact on maybe your family, your school, your community. Is there something you can do, something you can spread, maybe just a way that you are that would have a positive impact on our community? Because I think overall in the book that we read today, I think Robert Munch was trying to tell us that you can have a huge impact on your friends and family members. And so today, think about that. What are some things that you could do that could really have a positive impact on the other people around you? Don't forget that special word today, that key word, secret word, is oceans. So you'll want to make sure and say that to your teacher so that they know that you listened to my story by Robert Munch today, Stephanie's Ponytail. And I thank you all for tuning in today, and I hope you have a great day.